Why would a compassionate goddess force us to drink the soup of forgetting? Why does salvation begin with erasing everything we've ever known? Today, I'm going to tell you a truth about Meng Po's story that no one dares to speak. A truth that will make you question everything you think you know about memory, love, and the soul's journey. See, we've been told this story backwards. We think Meng Po is the villain who steals our precious memories. We romanticize those who refuse her soup, calling them true lovers who remember across lifetimes. But what if I told you that forgetting isn't the opposite of remembering? What if the deepest form of love requires letting go of everything we think love is? After these next 15 minutes, you'll understand why forgetting is actually the highest form of remembering the soul can achieve, and why Meng Po might be the most compassionate being you'll ever encounter. But first, let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. Have you ever wished you could forget something? A betrayal that still stings when you think about it? A failure that whispers, "You're not enough," in quiet moments? A loss that carved a hole in your chest you're still trying to fill? Of course you have. We all have. Here's what they don't tell you about Meng Po. She wasn't born a goddess. She was born during the Western Han Dynasty, a mortal woman just like us. From childhood, she studied Confucian texts, seeking wisdom. As she grew, she devoted herself entirely to Buddhist sutras. Think about that for a moment. This woman who would become the eraser of memories spent her human life collecting knowledge, learning, remembering. She wasn't some distant deity who never understood human attachment. She was someone who knew intimately what it meant to cling to thoughts, to words, to the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. Who better to understand the weight of memory than someone who carried the burden of infinite knowledge? Who better to recognize when remembering becomes a prison than someone who spent a lifetime trying to remember everything? I spent 3 years carrying a story about someone who hurt me. 3 years replaying conversations, analyzing their words, building case files in my mind about why I was right and they were wrong. I thought I was being strong. I thought I was protecting myself. But I wasn't protecting myself. I was imprisoning myself. Every day, I chose to drink from the cup of remembering that pain. Here's the paradox that breaks most people's minds. We pray for the pain to stop, but we refuse to put down the knife we're stabbing ourselves with. We beg for peace while clutching chaos. We say we want to heal while feeding our wounds with the same thoughts that created them. And when someone offers us the chance to truly let go, whether it's a therapist, a friend, or an ancient goddess with a bowl of soup, we call them cruel. We call them heartless. But what if? What if Meng Po isn't the enemy of memory? What if she's memory's truest friend? Someone who loves our souls enough to say, "You don't have to carry this anymore." Because there's something even deeper happening here. Something that will change how you see not just this story, but your own relationship with the past. Here's truth number 1 that will shatter everything you think you know about yourself. You are not your memories. You think you're the sum of your experiences, your stories, your past. But if that were true, then why do people with Alzheimer's, people who lose every memory they've ever had, why do their loved ones still recognize their essence, their soul signature? My grandmother forgot my name, forgot her own children's faces, but when I held her hand, she still smiled the same way. She was still her. The part that laughed at silly jokes, the part that hummed while folding laundry, the part that loved without condition. Your memories are not you. They're stories you've been carrying, and some of those stories have been poisoning you for years. Truth number 2, forgetting is not losing. It's returning to freedom. When Meng Po offers that soup, she's not stealing your treasures. She's taking your chains. Think about it. What if the reason we come back lifetime after lifetime isn't because we need to remember more, but because we need to forget deeper? Every trauma you carry, every grudge you nurse, every what-if that keeps you awake at night, these aren't precious memories. They're anchors keeping your soul from floating. Forgetting isn't erasure, it's liberation. It's your soul saying, I don't need this story to know who I am. Truth number 3 is going to hurt, but you need to hear it. We are addicted to our pain. We're addicted to the drama, addicted to being the victim in our own story, addicted to the identity that suffering gives us. Because if we're not the person who was wronged, who was abandoned, who was betrayed, then who are we? I held onto a betrayal for 3 years. 3 years. I replayed it like a favorite song. I introduced myself to new people through that wound. Hi, I'm someone who was hurt. I thought it made me interesting. I thought it made me deep. But I wasn't healing. I was performing. I wasn't growing. I was rotting from the inside, feeding on my own decay, until I realized my pain had become my identity. My wound had become my worth. Truth number 4 will blow your mind. Meng Po isn't a stranger. She's not some external force doing something to you. She is the highest part of you. The part that knows you deserve better than carrying everyone else's baggage. The part that sees beyond the stories you tell yourself about why you're broken. When you resist her soup, you're not protecting love. You're protecting the ego's need to be right about its suffering. You're protecting the small self that thinks it is its wounds. Meng Po is your soul's deepest wisdom saying, baby, you don't need to carry this anymore. Let me help you remember who you really are. And here's the final truth that will change everything. The deepest love sometimes looks like cruelty. When a mother takes candy from a diabetic child, it looks mean. When a surgeon cuts into flesh, it looks violent. When Meng Po won't let you keep your precious pain, it looks heartless. But that's not cruelty. That's fierce compassion. That's love that refuses to enable your self-destruction. That's love that says, I care more about your freedom than your comfort. Meng Po doesn't take your memories because she doesn't understand love. She takes them because she understands love better than you do. She knows something you've forgotten. You are not your story. You are the consciousness experiencing the story. And that consciousness is eternal, unbreakable, and already free. But here's what will really shock you. The reason we fight so hard against forgetting, the reason we cling to our pain like precious jewels, the reason we fight so hard against forgetting comes from one of the most beautiful stories ever told. The tale of lovers who promise to find each other across lifetimes, who refuse Meng Po's soup so they can remember, so they can search through eternity for their beloved. It sounds so romantic, doesn't it? So noble. Two souls declaring that their love is stronger than divine forgetfulness, that their connection transcends the very architecture of rebirth itself. I used to think this was the most beautiful love story I'd ever heard, until I understood what it really meant. When we refuse to drink the soup of forgetting, what are we really saying? We're saying, I cannot trust that love will find me again. I cannot believe that what we share exists beyond these specific memories, these particular stories. Think about that for a moment. Real love, the kind that moves mountains, that creates miracles, that connects souls across time and space. That love needs a specific face, a particular name, a set of memories to survive? Or is something else happening here? Something more human, more understandable, but also more limited. Here's what I see when I look at those who refuse the soup. I see the ego's beautiful, tragic misunderstanding of love. I see the human heart confusing attachment with connection. I see souls who haven't yet learned that they are love itself. It's not their fault. We live in a world that teaches us love is something we find, something we possess, something we can lose. We're taught that if we forget the story of how we met, we lose the love itself. But that's like saying if you forget how you learned to breathe, you'll suffocate. It's like saying if you forget your first sunset, you'll never see beauty again. I once knew someone who kept every photograph of their deceased spouse, every letter, every gift, every piece of clothing. Their home became a shrine to memory. They thought they were honoring love. But when friends visited, they saw something else. They saw someone so busy protecting the past that they couldn't receive the present. So focused on remembering one form of love that they'd closed themselves to love's other expressions. The photographs weren't preserving love. They were preserving a specific shape that love once took. And in holding so tightly to that shape, they were telling love itself, "You're only welcome here if you look exactly like you did before." That's what refusing Meng Po's soup really is. It's the soul saying, "Love, I'll only recognize you if you wear the same face, speak the same words, carry the same memories." But here's the truth that changes everything. Real love doesn't live in memory. It lives in capacity. It doesn't exist in the story of what happened. It exists in the openness to what's happening now. When you drink Meng Po's soup, you're not losing love. You're expanding it. You're saying to the universe, "I trust love enough to let it surprise me. I trust my heart enough to let it recognize truth in new forms." The lovers who refuse the soup think they're being faithful, but they're actually saying they don't trust love to be love without their help, without their memory, without their control. Real love doesn't need you to remember its resume. It just needs you to remain open, to stay soft, to keep your heart available for recognition. And that recognition happens not through memory, but through something much deeper. Something that exists in every moment. You choose kindness over fear, connection over protection, presence over the prison of the past. So if this is true, if Meng Po's soup is actually the deepest form of compassion, then how do we live this truth? How do we practice this ancient wisdom in a world of alarm clocks and grocery lists and endless notifications? The beautiful thing is, you're already doing it. You just didn't know it was sacred. Every single night, when you lay your head on your pillow and close your eyes, you are drinking a small sip of Meng Po's soup. Think about it. You release the grip of today, the conversations, the worries, the victories, the failures, and you surrender into unknowing. Sleep is your daily practice of letting go, your nightly rehearsal for the ultimate release. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you won't be carrying today's emotional charge exactly the same way. Something will have shifted, softened, transformed in the darkness. This is why they call it sleeping on it. Not because time heals, but because surrender does. Because in that space between consciousness and dreams, you practice being someone other than the person who went to bed with all those problems. And meditation, real meditation isn't about remembering more, collecting insights like spiritual trophies. It's about forgetting the stories that aren't serving you. Forgetting, for just a moment, who you think you're supposed to be. When you sit in silence and watch your thoughts arise and pass away, you're practicing the same letting go that Meng Po offers. You're learning that you are not your thoughts, not your memories, not your endless internal commentary about your life. You're remembering that you are the space in which all of this appears, the awareness that remains when everything else falls away. And forgiveness. Oh, this is where it gets beautiful. We think forgiveness means remembering what happened, but not feeling angry about it anymore. Like we're supposed to keep the memory, but change our relationship to it. But that's not forgiveness. That's management. That's keeping the wound open, but trying to make it hurt less. True forgiveness is forgetting the way that pain defined you. It's not about erasing what happened. It's about erasing what it meant about you, about them, about the world. It's drinking your own bowl of Meng Po's soup and saying, I don't need to carry this story forward. I don't need this hurt to know who I am. Because here's what I want you to hear, really hear. You have permission to forget. You have permission to wake up tomorrow and not immediately replay yesterday's disappointments. You have permission to meet people without the filter of how others hurt you. You have permission to love without the armor of your past betrayals. You have permission to let your story change, to let your identity expand beyond your wounds, to discover who you might be if you weren't spending so much energy protecting yourself from ghosts. This isn't spiritual bypassing. This isn't pretending pain doesn't matter. This is recognizing that you are bigger than any story pain could tell about you. You don't have to carry it all. You were never meant to carry it all. Meng Po isn't trying to steal your treasures. She's trying to return your wings. And if you're feeling something stirring in your chest right now, if something in you is both terrified and relieved to hear this, then you're ready for what comes next. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really feel into this question. Don't think your way to the answer. Feel your way there. What are you holding on to from your past that isn't serving you anymore? What story, what hurt, what identity are you carrying that's become more of a burden than a blessing? Take a breath. Let yourself know. And here's the question that might terrify you. Who would you be without that story? Who would you become if you weren't the person who was betrayed, or abandoned, or not chosen? Who would you be if you weren't carrying the weight of that old disappointment, that ancient fear? What if? What if that's exactly who you came here to discover? Meng Po doesn't ask you to forget because she wants to punish you. She doesn't offer that soup because she's cruel or heartless. She invites you to forget so you can remember who you really are. She invites you to let go of who you think you are so you can discover who you've always been. Beneath every story you tell about yourself, beneath every wound you carry, beneath every fear that whispers you're not enough, there is someone waiting. Someone who has never been broken. Someone who has always been whole. That's who Meng Po is trying to introduce you to. That's who she's been protecting all along. If something in this video touched you, if something stirred or shifted or cracked open just a little, you're not alone in this. We're all learning how to let go. We're all discovering what it means to love ourselves enough to stop carrying what isn't ours. So if you feel moved to, leave a comment below. Tell us. What's one thing you're ready to release after watching this? What's one story you're willing to let Meng Po help you with? You don't have to carry it all. You were never meant to carry it all. Welcome home to yourself.